All right. So one of the questions we've had is around projects and how they have changed or not changed given the events of the last 12 months. And fortunately for us, we've always been project driven, and I know George's team's very similar to ours. Um, I think the main thing early on was just to emphasize the communication. So much of what we communicate is nonverbal when we are in an office environment. And when you have everyone working remotely, I think you need to over communicate maybe a little bit in the beginning until you make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody's singing the same song. And I'm a huge advocate of video. I think being able to see somebody when you're communicating with them, particularly around complicated subjects, it's pretty easy to pick up nonverbal cues as to whether we're all on the same page here.
Steve, I couldn't agree with you more. I never would have dreamed a year ago that we would have a robust business like we have today. We've got some great customers. We're executing 2 large enterprise projects, which has most of our company consumed. And, we used Microsoft Teams, no shameless plug there. It has been a phenomenal tool that allows us to communicate with the customer. It allows us, to your point, to see and hear the facial expressions, the physical aspects of when you're working in a workshop, changing a customer's business process. You need to see the face, when you're making those types of recommendations. So we've been ourselves as well very successful at making this transition. And I personally feel as though our industry has changed forever. It used to be where we would get on a plane week in, week out for 40 weeks at a time, break for the holidays, and then start it all over again. And I think we have proven it to the customer base, and the customers have recognized it themselves that, this is an effective way of working. Not that you're going to eliminate all travel, but we do believe that more can be done remotely, which passes on a better quality of life, I think, for everybody involved in these large enterprise projects.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, George. Spot on.
Maintenance and reliability is never going to go away. We work with a lot of electric utilities. Most of our business is in electric utilities. And the reality is they need to keep the lights on, which means they need to be doing everything in the background that normally would be done, regardless of whether or not you had a pandemic or not. So I would say, they are looking for ways to maybe operate more efficiently. I think organizations, good world-class organizations, will do that continuously. But I really don't see a shift away. I would say I see a solid focus on safety and reliability that these maintenance organizations operate by. Steve, what are you seeing?
Well, George, I'm seeing very much the same thing, and I might be stealing a quote from you, but somebody told me many, many years ago that reliable assets support just about every industry. And as we move forward, we're fairly diversified in that we touch on a lot of different vertical markets, but reliability is huge. And in my world, in the services that we provide, we've seen a lot more emphasis on availability, high availability, and for people to be able to work from anywhere on anything. Means that the systems just they've got to be rock solid. They've got to be there. And much like your example of the utility business, I think that communication has become a bit of a utility, as it were.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
George, I don't think a day goes by that we're not being asked about Mass 8.0 and the implications. And, there's a little bit of FUD and some of the skies falling out there. For us, it's about this constant communication between ourselves and IBM. We work really closely with them on new product development. So we have the advantage of being in the loop, so to speak, and having the ability to test new things as they're rolled out. How are you seeing it from your vantage?
Yeah, very similar. We as well have a very close, tight-knit relationship with IBM. We're a development partner in some of the industry solutions themselves, as well as a beta partner to them. And I think you're right. I think there's call it hoopla, call it FUD. It's Maximo. Moving forward, it's Maximo. It's the world-class product. And all they're doing with Mass is improving its ability to get deployed easily with new robust functionality that is in the roadmap. And we're happy to see that. One of the things we're actually doing proactively is we're actually having a group of our technicians in the company learn the installation process because it is different. So I'm sure you guys are doing the same thing. I think that's the first part of learning about the new product framework is how to just get it up and running. So
Absolutely.
like you guys, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah. And in my experience, and obviously you're much younger than I, George, but you can go back 20 or more years, and the V4 to V6 jump was a real platform change. It was huge. I'm intentionally not talking about V5 here, but I think what I learned, or the lessons we took away from that, was that the change is not nearly as traumatic as everyone might thinks it's going to be. To your point, it's improvement, and it's better functionality, it's more integration, more capabilities, but the change is never really as bad as you might think. And I also found that the timeline's not nearly as aggressive as everyone thinks it might be initially.
Mhm.
People are talking about weeks and months, and I really think we're talking years here. We had V4 clients for 20 years. Not that I'd ever want to do that again, but some companies just don't move that fast, and it's not the Maximo problem. In our business, we can deliver every flavor, it's just as soon as you want it. But whether or not you should do that, or whether your other systems are ready for that, really becomes, the biggest part of the puzzle, in my view.
Yeah, to your point, going from 4, which was client server days at best, to 6 is certainly a web-based shift, and Mass is not deviating from that. It's just a new method of packaging and improving the existing functionality. So I think to your point, nobody should be afraid of it. It's something that should be easily embraceable.
Yeah, I agree. Architecturally, I think it's a nice move in the right direction. I think it's going to make systems, the consumed systems, compute, RAM, all those fun things. You can be a lot more efficient, more effective.
Yep.
So a lot of talk these days about cloud. Obviously, it's been embraced quite a bit more here in the last 12 months. The rate of adoption has certainly increased dramatically, but I think over the past year, what we've seen is that most people, as opposed to some, that most people understand that the cloud is real, that the speed is real, that cloud security is real, that artificial intelligence is here, it's real, you can leverage that in your enterprise, and that machine learning is real. It's all right in front of us, and these are all being cloud enabled. In my view, it's all about connectivity, George. It's just how many people are talking to the system, and in what ways. There aren't too many of us don't have a phone on our person, and the workforce is the same thing. So everybody's collaborating, and it just seems like there's been this shift.
Yeah, and the integratability with external systems and external processes across organizations is, it doesn't go away. I think if anything, the pandemic has proven that, where the product exists is meaningless. It really doesn't make a difference. And why would an organization, a large organization, stand it up in their own data center, which is effectively their own cloud, hire people to manage it, where there's folks who can do it like you guys much more effectively and much more economically. So to me, it's the pandemic has proven a lot that we can do these things that others may have been afraid to do, in the past prior to it.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's just amazed me just how quickly, just one piece, video, just how quickly that took off here in the last 12 months. I have neighbors in their 80s, and 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon, the world comes to a hard stop for them because they're going to go Zoom with their grandkids. And the one gentleman still carries a flip phone, but now he's connected to his grandkids, and by golly, he sees them every Sunday afternoon. But I don't think you got him in front of a camera 14 months ago. You know what I mean? And it's a weekly event for him now. And whether it's Teams or Zoom or whatever, they've really done a lot to make it goof-proof, pretty easy to communicate, as we're doing here today.
Yeah, it's a cultural change too that it applies. We have virtual cocktail hours, we have virtual cocktail classes and cooking classes, if you will. So
Well,
our lives are permanently changed, I believe.
I agree completely.
Steve, tell me, how's the pandemic changed the consensus around Maximo as a service in your mind?
It's pretty interesting from where I sit. It just seems like there's a different conversation, George. People are not talking about the hypothetical, should we or when will we or what would it take to. The conversation is much more direct around, we're going to the cloud here, so what's involved? So it's just a shift in the way the conversation unfolds. And I think simultaneously, we've seen a lot of velocity in deal, people just moving faster. What was a 12 or 18-month sales cycle has been cut in half or even more, depending on the customer.
That's cool.
So, George, one great thing about Cohesive that I've always admired is how much you emphasize and how talented your team is around process and support. You guys execute on that as well as anyone. It really goes to show you that it's just not technology, don't you think?
Absolutely. That's been one of the cornerstones of our business, Steve. And, we've worked very hard over the last 20 years to establish a practice around the client's business as opposed to around the technology. Obviously, Maximo plays a big piece of that, and the technology is important. But I think like our customers come to us for our business expertise and knowledge in asset management and reliability, they actually come to Projetech for Maximo in the cloud as well. We believe, let the professionals, let the folks that get it right do the work. And, I think our team has proven that they get it right on the process side, as well as the Projetech team has proven that they're getting it right on the Maximo side of the equation. You need both. And we all focus on the things that we do best. And I think that's what makes both organizations so great.
Yeah, well said. You guys are always, first of mind when we talk about process and support and engaging with the client differently. And, you're well known for it and deservedly so.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, Russ, my buddy from TVA up in Chattanooga, is asking about electronic work packages. And an EWP, electronic work package, is basically amalgamation of your work plan, typically coming from Maximo, and as well all the documentation and forms that are associated with executing work in a nuclear plant. So Russ is really looking for, where is the industry going as it relates to applying the electronic work package processes and as well applying smart procedures to these processes. These work packages all have the procedure built into them. And really, Russ, I think what you're going to be seeing here in the future is the application of EWP across nuclear, but I don't think the smart procedure capability is there quite yet. And you're going to see probably some third-party applications, like we're working with one group right now, on one of our projects in the Midwest who are applying the technology, but not the true smart procedures. I think it's going to be a while before you see that. And as you mentioned, Russ, what you're seeing there is, in order to do that, it takes a real sizable investment. And I think the market is very small. The one glimmer of hope, I think, is for the new reactors, the small modular reactor engineers and manufacturers. You may see some new technology in this area coming when they start to build and operate those units, but we're still 10 years off from that.